Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Curator's Corner here at the National Civil War Naval Museum. I'm Jeff Seymour, curator and historian here at the museum. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we brought out one of the most important artifacts that we have on display here at the museum. This is the uniform coat of Commander Catesby Ap Roger Jones. Jones is one of the most important naval officers of the Civil War period. He is from Virginia, and before the war he joined the U.S. Navy. Before the war starts, Catesby Jones is actually serving aboard the USS Merrimack. When the war begins, Jones, who's from Virginia, resigns his commission in the United States Navy and joins with the Confederacy. He finds himself in Richmond and is assigned to the transformative ship, the Merrimack, as the Confederate Navy is transforming that sailing ship into the ironclad Virginia. At the Battle of Hampton Roads, Admiral Franklin Buchanan is wounded on the first day of the battle, and being executive officer of the Virginia, he takes command of the ship, and the next day, in the famous fight with the USS Monitor, Jones is actually the commander of the ship there. So, he is one of the most important naval officers on either side of the Civil War. Now, there's also an important connection to Columbus. Later in the year, Jones is transferred to Columbus, Georgia. Now, this isn't the Confederate Navy transferring some problematic officer to some backwater operation. That tells you how important Columbus was to the infrastructure of the Confederate Navy. There are ironworks here, ship production, any number of other manufacturing capacities here. Jones is sent here to oversee the beginnings of the construction of the Chattahoochee River Squadron. Let's take a closer look at some of the details of this uniform. First of all, it is not the uniform that he wore during the famous battle at Hampton Roads. That uniform was actually burned up earlier in the war in a factory accident. This uniform, we believe, was purchased here in Columbus, possibly in Selma. There's some debate about that, but it's a later war construction. It's a later war purchase. It is standard Confederate Navy requirements. You have a gray frock coat, shoulder boards, base is blue, and 2 stars for the rank of commander. Now, if we look closer at the buttons, we get some interesting details here. First of all, if you look at the large buttons along the front of the frock, these are actually Virginia state buttons. But now, as we look over at the sleeve buttons, we will notice that they are actually Maryland state buttons. Why is this? We're not really sure. But as I turn the uniform around, the buttons on the back are actually standard issue Confederate Navy buttons. By standard issue, I actually mean their officers are required to buy them. Well, let's take a look at the buttons here. If you notice, the back of the frock actually fans out. This is done for a reason. It's a standard frock coat that you see a lot of times with infantry officers or cavalry officers, because this has to fan out so the gentleman can ride on horseback. On top of that, if we look even closer, look here. You've got pockets in the back of the uniform coat, back of the frock coat. This is for mostly maps. There are map tubes that you can put in here, any number of documents that you can slide in here, but this is extra storage space. Now let's return to the sleeve. If you notice, the rank You can tell an officer's rank not only by the shoulder boards, but also by the gold bullion around the cuff of the sleeve. This, of course, is for commander in the Confederate Navy. Now, here's an interesting detail that most people don't get with modern clothing. Look at the buttons here. They actually button and unbutton the sleeve. This is the style of older military uniforms. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's just a small portion of many of the exciting things that we have here at the National Civil War Naval Museum. And thank you so much for visiting with us, and we hope to see you at the museum soon.